Something I'm particularly grateful for with my parents is just that we've had a really good demonstration of marriage and good insight. The stability of our family is really based upon the stability of their relationship, and that they've always been such a solid foundation.
My name's Andrew. I'm 48 years old. I grew up on a small farm just outside of Wagga in New South Wales in Australia. I'm one of 6 children, so I'm actually from a larger family as well. We grew up as a Catholic family, so we went to Mass every Sunday. Sometimes we prayed together. We grew up not having a lot of money, and maybe that was part of my motivation to try and be successful when I was in my younger adult years. I think I might have been compensating for sort of living a very modest lifestyle from an early age. When I was young, so obviously my faith was important to me. I always was drawn to or preferred to have think that I would end up with a Catholic girl as a wife.
So my name's Frances. I'm 47 years old. I grew up in the Clare Valley on a farm. I'm one of 4 children. Had a beautiful, carefree childhood, a lot of freedom growing up on the farm. Completely different experience growing up in the country. I did my year 11 and 12 in Victoria, and then I started nursing after my year off. So I moved to a place called Wagga in New South Wales. My sister had actually moved down from Sydney. She'd started up her own practice as a naturopath in New South Wales in Wagga. And she actually recommended, she said, why don't you just come to Wagga? And she was part of the cathedral parish in Wagga, and she used to play a lot of music, and that with the cathedral parish, she was kind of involved with the youth as well. So through her, I started to get involved with the youth. I went along to a youth group, and it just so happened that Andrew was at that youth group.
But we both met when we were at university. It was one of those things that probably wasn't love at first sight. We actually met at a youth group, and Frances had moved over from South Australia to New South Wales and to stay with her sister, and she was studying nursing at the time. Frances needed help later, a few days later, with her university timetable, and her sister invited me around to help her with it, and that actually made matters worse. It didn't improve our relationship because Frances was frustrated trying to work out her university timetable.
And Andrew wasn't much help.
I was no help at all. Well, she studied nursing and I studied accounting, so the timetables were completely different. And so she was feeling frustrated. So this is my second meeting I didn't know at the time was my future wife, and I didn't warm to her very well at all. So then our third meeting, I normally would drive out to university, but my car was at the mechanics getting fixed, and so I had to catch the bus. And who do I see walking down the street? And there was a group of people at the bus stop, so I was young at the time and avoided eye contact.
I actually remember his face because I saw him, and I remember him just going, oh.
Somebody that I didn't. It was early in the morning, first day of uni, last person I wanted to see was this anyway. And the bus pulled up, and then we got onto the bus, and it was standing room only. It was quite crowded, so I turned around. Guess who was there? Frances. Big smile, completely different person, and we hit it off from then. We spoke all the way out to university, and from then on we became really good friends. We started dating, and we were both at university at the time. I then actually moved. I got a job when just before I graduated to a town or a city that was about 4 hours away. So Frances was still studying her nursing at that point in time, and she would often, sometimes come up and visit. We then became engaged, and then in February 1996 we got married.
So we have 6 children. So our eldest is Talia, she's 25. Talia's very bubbly and joyous, and she's just someone that just makes you smile. She's so compassionate with other people.
To bring the best out in people, there's something very warm and engaging with her.
So I think her vocation as a paramedic, she does that really, really well.
I'm the eldest of the 6 kids, which is probably a bit unique in the sense that I saw all of the younger ones being born. Bridget and Raquel I remember more as my childhood playmates, whereas Caleb, Maya and Amos being the younger ones, I actually remember when they were babies, and it was probably helpful to Mum that she had older daughters at that time because we were able to help out so much with babysitting. Something I'm particularly grateful for with my parents is just that we've had a really good demonstration of marriage and good insight, but it's also been good that during the tough years, particularly when Dad was in Dubbo and he was working so hard, it's also good to have seen the work that it takes and the compromise and, the work behind the scenes, so to speak, in terms of, what it actually takes to make it work and to foster that friendship and keep it going throughout the years so that you don't have illusions and you know exactly what that relationship takes. And it's shown me that marriage is extremely sort of self-sacrificing, and very much what I observe with them is that they give to each other, and it's about sort of what you can give to make that person the best possible person that they can be, if that makes sense. So I'm very, very grateful. For me, if I ever get married, it's very clear in my mind that that's sort of a self-sacrificing, it's a really gorgeous thing, but I'm very aware of the work that's involved to make it as good as what my parents have now, which is gorgeous. They're each other's best friends, and that I love how happy that they are together, and I'm glad that I've been able to witness that. As I said, so many people seem to separate these days, and it's good to have that classic example of making it work at all costs, that divorce is never an option, and it's never been an option for them. And the stability that they have, I think the stability of our family is really based upon the stability of their relationship, and that they've always been such a solid foundation, and there's never been any threat of them separating.
And then we have Bridget, she's our second eldest, she's 23. She's in Melbourne. She left home at 18, she went to Melbourne, kind of wanted
When she finished school.
Yes, wanted to find her own way a little bit. So she's a very, very gifted musician, and also it sort of suits, the music vibe in her, I think. She studied sound engineering when she was in Melbourne, did 2 years of that. She recorded some of her own songs. She writes her own music, she plays guitar. She's very, very talented with her music. Raquel's a third one. Raquel works with us at our work in an admin role and a personal assistant role.
She was a little bit more aware of what to do and what not to do, so she could, do a lot of things that teenagers do within reason, but not. She was wise enough not to take them too far, and she's always carried that wisdom with her.
Being in a big family always gets a big reaction from your friends or people you meet along the way. Most of my friends have, all of my friends actually only have one other sibling, so they only come from quite a nuclear family of 4. But they love it as well. When they come over to our house, they love all the people. It's very different to what they're used to. They're normally used to, a quiet house because either they've got a younger sibling that they're not, really too close in age, or their older siblings already left the house. So it's generally, just them alone in their house. So we've definitely had that feedback from my own friends and even my siblings' friends, just about how energetic and lively and fun our house always is. I generally have some of my girlfriends over if we're ever catching up, and they've mentioned many times that they love coming over to our house because of just how many people there are and how fun and energetic it always is.
There's Caleb, he's 19.
19.
And he finished school, he's in his second year since he's finished school, and he's now joined the army, but actually to study engineering. So he's always been very academic and really good with his studies, and very self-disciplined. So he and Raquel were very easy to raise. And then there's Maya.
Maya's 16. She's year 12 this year. She's probably our athletic one, isn't she?
Yeah.
She's pretty good at any sport that she takes her hand to. She does really quite well.
Personally, I love being in a big family just because it's always exciting, entertaining. You know, you've always got extra support if you need it, which is comforting, and you know, you've always got an extra friend there with your siblings and a lot of support from mum and dad as well. Yeah, I have a really good relationship with like my older sisters especially. They definitely give me a lot of advice because they've had a lot of life experience before me, so that definitely helps me get through things. You know, I've got a protective older brother and that's always comforting, and so obviously my parents have been very influential on, you know, how I see things and very logical, and I've always sort of wanted to apply that to where I can and inspire people where I can. Yeah.
And then we have Amos. Amos is just turned 13. He's the baby of the lot. He's just got a very endearing nature about him. His older siblings absolutely love him, actually.
I have 4 sisters and 1 brother, so that can be a bit chaotic at times, but I know that they'll always have my back and I love them and everything. I do get pushed around a bit as being the youngest, but I know that's just what having siblings is like. I'm getting older and learning to be a man, but they do help a lot because they are older, they're experienced, they know what to do and what not to do. And almost all of them have gone through high school. Maya's in her last year and they all know basically everything to do each year. And by the time I'm in year 9, Maya will have finished and they'll guide me through, tell me about my studies and what to do and everything. So I know they'll always have my back and I love them all and they just keep me happy and motivated and everything.
You know, Frances did a bit of nursing, but when she had Talia, well, then I was the main income earner and I was a young accountant at the time. So financially it was
tough.
It was difficult.
But you always make ends meet, and you know, we had 3 in 3 years, so they came pretty quickly, 4 in 5.5 years. But it's amazing, it's the little things that you just really appreciate. And I think, you know, people sort of say, oh, how did you cope? It's kind of like, well, I didn't know any differently. So, you know, having at that stage 3 in 3 years, I'd have 2 in nappies and 1 out of nappies, and you just do what you do, and I wouldn't change it for the world. And I love it. Now that our kids are older, they like that they've still got young parents and that we can, you know, do stuff with them, and we're just not oldies, are we? Oh,
sometimes I feel pretty old. But That's the beauty of it as well. I mean, we had 3 in 3 years, so those are the 3 older girls. They have a great relationship and they're really good friends, and then their younger siblings, they have great relationships with them as well. And they also were able to be people that they could talk to, so the younger siblings could talk to the older girls if it was something that they weren't comfortable talking with us about, and they would be a support to each other. So it means it creates a relationship or a dynamic that just doesn't rely on the parents. I mean, we have to be the witnesses to them and instill in them the values, but then they pass that down, between each other, if that makes sense. And, and we started off young, and, we didn't have much money to start with. And
I always wanted a large family, so I got what I wanted, but it certainly wasn't smooth sailing. When they were young, and Andrew was working the hours that he was working, it was pretty tough because he was really focusing on his career and advancing his career and working his way up the corporate ladder. He would be in at the office at 7:30 in the morning, 7:30, 8 in the morning. He wouldn't come home until 7:30, 8 at night. By that time the kids were fed, they were bathed, they were ready for bed. So I was sort of doing that on my own, and then he'd come home, which was always really hard because he was working such long hours through the day. It was nice when he was home on the weekends.
my career sort of took off, and then, that probably didn't become financially difficult, in time. And
Priorities shifted.
But the priorities shifted. But in that time too, I often share, and I share, with the kids, that my career and that sort of phase of my life when they were, particularly the older girls were younger back then, my career was sort of a big part of my life and a priority, and increasingly that became more important than not more important, but it always took precedent over, my family and my faith. So, I mean, we always went to Mass on Sunday, and, confession wasn't a regular thing, and we didn't pray often together. And in time, while we were enjoying, I guess, material and financial success, and we still had a great family at that point in time, when Frances fell pregnant with our youngest, Amos, I got to the point where I realised that I didn't want to continue, down that path. And Frances and I spoke, and we decided to leave. You decided. I just supported you. We spoke about it, and I just said I can't do this anymore. And nothing, terrible happened, but I could see if I continued down this path, that was going to become more and more destructive.
The following February, we had Amos. So then we stayed on for another, I think it was 11 months, because we put the house on the market. And so we moved back to South Australia. We all had to say goodbye to Andrew, which was really, really hard. That 6 months away from Andrew was probably the most challenging time that I had with the kids. I was on my own. I was living with my parents. I hadn't lived with my parents since I was 15, and then I'd moved home with 6 kids. So that in itself was a big challenge. And then Andrew came home after 6 months, and then we eventually found somewhere where we could move out of Mum and Dad's, and we had our own house, we were renting, which was wonderful. I actually felt like I was on holiday, because it was just to have our family unit back again. We really had a real struggle, particularly with our eldest two and their rebelliousness. And
it's not rebellious, I mean it's not, but you know, they go through a lot of change, and I think most parents could probably relate to it. They, you know, you get a bit of attitude, and you know, they start wanting to do different things, and that can be very confronting. But as parents, we quickly learned, and I think because I'd moved out of that corporate environment, the stability in myself and Francis and our relationship, it was very providential that happened around the time Talia, eldest, and then the other, Bridget and Raquel, started to become teenagers, because you need that strength in your relationship and your marriage as the foundation to get the rest of the family through. And I don't think that you can give your kids a greater gift, and the foundation of your marriage is founded on your faith. Francis and I, you know, praying the rosary every day. Like my old self, I would never have thought of that. But as a parent, as a father, I see how necessary it is. Regular confession, not only Mass on every Sunday now, you know, I get to Mass most days, you know. You need that, and that becomes a foundation. That becomes a foundation to them. That becomes a foundation to us. That we become the foundation to them, and then that they learn to do, you know, to do that. You know, to follow in those values without, because if they rebel or resent it, you know, then it actually just exacerbates it, makes it worse. Even though you think, well, this is how I want it to be, you know, I think, well, God wants things to be, you know, different than what they are, but you know, he's given everyone free will, so he doesn't come in and make people do things, you know, against their will. So how can we expect to do that and you have to learn it, and it helps you grow in your own faith, just in terms of accepting and surrendering. They come through it, and they're beautiful.
We are the Mulholland family, and we joyfully bid.
Are you searching for answers? Discover your true identity. Stay tuned to Shalom World.